Hey, welcome to Beyond the Alphabet, a podcast that has gone absolutely nowhere. And why is that? Because I have not put hardly any time into it. I will come on here every once in a while, once in a blue moon, and do a recording, and then I'll post something on social media, hope that somebody sees it and get a response from it. And it really doesn't matter. I'm not looking for followers. I'm not looking for all that kind of stuff. I'm looking to be obedient to the Lord and talking about my testimony. If you don't know me, my name is Jen. I lived as a lesbian in the alphabet community for over 30 years. Came out a long time ago, long before all the stuff that's going on now in the community is going. Excuse me. I was married to a transgender for a period of time. And obviously that didn't work out because here I am sitting here and I'm single, gratefully single, and doing this. The community back then was much different, much different. I'm going to talk a little bit about today about that community, but what I really want to talk about is the mentality of the community. Back in the day, this was a long time ago, where there were things you couldn't foster children back then. If you were gay, you couldn't adopt children for sure back then if you were gay. I don't even think that you could go to a donation bank and get donations and impregnate yourself if you were in some sort of, gay lifestyle. And I don't know how they would know in the beginning of my lifestyle. I don't know how they would know because I was not trying to have kids then. I just knew that back then there were very minimal rights. You couldn't get married. You couldn't get tax benefits or put your partner on your benefits or anything like that. And I think one of the hardest things, and I've kind of talked about this before, one of the hardest things was the fact that if you were in a relationship for 30 plus years, which there were a lot of lesbians that were in relationships like that, and I can't even imagine what it was like when they were first coming out, but they were in relationships and then they would grow old together, which is what they wanted to do. They wanted to be able to get married and grow old together. And since they couldn't get married, they would move in together. They would grow old together and they would pretend like they were friends and families because the community wasn't as shoved down your throat like it is today. And it wasn't looking to do that. Families didn't even think about it. They're like, oh, they're just roommates. As a matter of fact, I was watching All in the Family the other day because they have reruns, and that show is wild, by the way. I grew up watching that show actually, but they have a incident on there where one of their relatives was living with another woman and they never realized that they were partners. And it kind of touches base on what that's like for the family and that coming out because one of them passed away. And the family was coming in to take all of the things. And that's reality. That's how it would happen. It would happen where they live together. They build this life together. They have a home. One of them owns the home one of them owns the home because they couldn't buy a home together. One of them owns the home. And then the other one, and then they buy all this stuff together and they, 30 years plus or whatever. And then life happens, right? We're going to pass away and things happen. One gets ill, goes to the hospital, and then it's family only that can come in and see the individual. And so these couples, whether they were male or female, would lose their partners. If they had to go to the hospital, they would lose their partners and not be able to see them before they passed away or while they were sick in the hospital. And because they weren't related. And that's the kind of stuff that the community used to fight for back then, because if you could get married, then you would have those things. And if you could get married, then you could have benefits, because even back then you couldn't have benefits. You couldn't have your partner on your benefits. So imagine if you're married now and you put your spouse and your kids and all the things on your benefits. These individuals couldn't do that. And for those Christians that are out there like, well, they're not, marriage is between a man and a woman. That is true. That is biblical. That is very true. That's what God says. It is between a man and a woman. But we're talking about just human beings here and the things that they're asking for. Whether their marriage is God breathed or not is beside the point of what I'm trying to make. And the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because the community has changed so much. The entitlement has come in. A new generation has come in, and they have completely destroyed what the community was really all about. The marches that would happen back then for rights, and when they finally were totally different. The pride parades were just as sexualized. I feel like when I would go to them, I've been to many pride parades, and they were just as sexualized. But I want to talk about the human factor of these individuals and what they really fought for. And I unfortunately had the opportunity to witness and meet a woman that I don't obviously know at this point. I was young at that time and out of the military, and met a woman who was with somebody for that amount of time. And it was very common that they didn't get to say goodbye to their loved ones. And that, I don't care who you are, that is awful. That's awful. So as time went on, the community fought for their rights. They fought for their rights to get married, and that didn't happen. It was a domestic partnership, and then companies had to go ahead and say, "Oh, okay, now you have to honor domestic partnerships." And in certain states, I don't think all states did, and so because I don't remember that much in detail, but I don't think all states did. And so then, as a domestic partner, you could put your domestic partner on your insurance. But a lot of people didn't even want to come out as gay still back then, because there was just this thing that hovered over people, and it still was kind of hush hush. And then it finally came out that gay marriage was legal. And I remember when that was passed, and I remember seeing on the news, and I actually ran across one of the news clips not that long ago where people were just running out of the courtrooms, and just like the news people were just the media is just trying to get as fast as they could down notes down to their news anchors and just be able to talk about what, monumental moment just happened. And though biblically these relationships are not God breathed, the idea behind them, and though straight marriages don't always work out, and that was another argument of why people should not have gay couples should not be able to marry. That was another reason. It wasn't just the sanctity between a man and a woman. It was the fact that they were not going to stay married, and they were just going to get divorced anyway. Well, so do straight people. Straight people get divorced too. But that's not what it was about for these couples. Obviously, they loved each other. They wanted to be able to have a wedding that was legitimate. You can have a wedding whenever you want to, but they wanted to be able to have the wedding, be able to have the paperwork, be able to do all the things, pay taxes, just raise a family, buy a home together, and live their lives. Now, did a lot of the marriages that I knew about, are those people still married? No, they're not. But there's straight couples I know that aren't married either. I think the couple that I know that's married the longest in my family is, I think, my brother and his wife, and they're amazing. So my parents didn't even make it. And that's sad. That's sad that's just a thing. It doesn't matter whether you're part of the gay community or you're part of the straight community. The fact that the sanctity of marriage has become something that is so easy to quit. We could just quit this marriage. And why bother getting married if you're just going to quit anyway? Well, I don't think any of these individuals that wanted to get married wanted to divorce later on anyway. The problem is that when people get married, they don't get married out of love. They're getting married out of lust. And when things get hard, because you grow and things get hard, they don't know how to work through them because the relationship isn't God breathed. And I'm not saying that Christians don't get divorced too. They do. But they really do everything they possibly can to not divorce. From my experience. You could have a different experience. This is just my experience. And I do believe that gay couples do the same thing. I have friends, actually, I lied. I just remembered. I do have friends that are still married. I do have a couple that is still married. They've raised their children and they're having a beautiful life together. And I look at them when I look at where my beliefs are today, and I look at them and I think, what a beautiful life they have. And that's what I think about it. And that's it. I just think of what a beautiful life they have. I remember when they met. I remember when they got together. I remember where we were at. I remember a lot about their relationship. I remember just watching them grow together. And obviously, we don't talk all the time, but in fact, I haven't talked to them in years, but I have had the privilege of being able to watch through social media different things that they go do, and it's a blessing. And I know that they don't agree with all the things that I say, because how could you? But I do watch yeah. And I look at that and say, yeah, people can make it. People can make it. So back to what we were talking about. So that was really what it was about. It was about people wanting to be able to, these couples wanting to be able to live their lives, own a home, have kids, do all the things. That's what they wanted to do. It wasn't about, oh, let's put pride flags in schools. Let's teach gay sex ed. Let's do, I don't know, all the weird, let's let our kids use a litter box in the bathroom. Let's have our kids cut all their parts off. Let's mutilate our children. It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't anything like that at all. And I had friends that transitioned. I did. And, and having conversations with those individuals that had transitioned, I had met people that had already transitioned, and you would have never known from female to male. I would have never known. And unless they told me. And then some of my friends that I knew as females that transitioned to males. And now today, that individual walks into a bathroom, you would never know. You would never, ever, ever know. And that's not to say that men belong in women's bathrooms, because that's to say that obviously men that you can tell are men do not belong in women's bathrooms or women's spaces. But that's a whole nother conversation. Let's wrap back around to where we're at. So yes, I had friends that transitioned, and so I was familiar with all of that kind of stuff and what that looked like. And that was fine for them. I was happy with where I was at the time. And I was happy being in the relationships. I was just trying to navigate relationships because I had zero idea what I was doing. Had nothing to do with the fact that I was gay. It had everything to do with the fact that I just still didn't know what I was doing. I think if I was in a straight relationship, I would have been just as lost as well. So it wouldn't have mattered. But we would go to pride parades, and I had a great time at pride parades. I really did. But at that time, I liked to drink and party and have a good time with all my friends and play softball and do all the things. And I would like to tell you that I had this horrific life as a lesbian, and I just didn't. I had some really dark times, and I was not a great girlfriend to some people because I was broken. I was broken, but I didn't even know I was broken. And it was great to be able to be in that generation and be able to witness some pretty substantial things happen in the community and watch the community just be just a stable part of society. Like, what did it matter that the couples were gay? It didn't matter, right? They were just normal people like me and you, and yeah, we just living our everyday life. They just happened to be with the same sex. That was it. And yeah, I had a great time. I did go to pride parades. I can tell you that the pride parades that I went to, I will not tell you the scenarios right now of different things that happened at those pride parades, but I can tell you right now that those pride parades are nowhere for children. They weren't back then, and they 1,000 billion gazillion % are not a place for children today. You will not convince me otherwise. There is no way. I have witnessed some stuff, some very seedy stuff at pride parades. Pride parades are very sexualized because the community is sexualized. It's all about who you're sexually attracted to. It's all about being attracted to the same sex. It's all about, well, I could never sleep with a guy, they gross me out, or I've had trauma with men, or in my case, I had a lot of trauma that I didn't even know about in a lot of situations. It was little parts of situations that brought me to being in the community. And, or yeah, some horrific things happen to people and that's why they're in the community. It just, there's broken people. There's also people that really have it together. There were people that really had it together, but there's a lot of broken people. But anyway, the brokenness is part of the Pride Parade, but the Pride Parades are really just a day to be able to say, hey, let's celebrate the victory of the things that we have been able to accomplish through this whole time. And all the protesting and when I say protesting, I'm talking about like real protesting. I'm not talking about this crazy, violent, angry, whatever it is stuff that goes on right now. I'm talking about real protesting, like speaking intelligently and voting in right people and going to different officials and trying to put in different bills and really just fighting for your rights to be able to have these things that are just everyday things that your average everyday straight person had. And that's it. And so that to me was pretty stable. I don't think it was asking a whole lot. I still don't think it is now. And I'm not against gay, the alphabet community owning homes. Having children is a whole nother story. That's a whole different thing. I know that I have friends that have kids and they have done an amazing job with those children. I also know that there's a risk when we have adoption, but there's a risk when you have adoption with either side. It doesn't matter. And I don't want to get deep into that because that's a pretty touchy subject, but I really wanted to just stay on track with how the community was back then. It was just a community that wanted just the average everyday rights that any straight couple would have. And that's really what we would talk about when we're fighting for those rights. And when those rights came, I'll never forget that day. It was crazy. I was like, I think my first thought was, well, they're going to try to take this away at some point. And as years went on, they didn't try to do that. And then you realize that, I think people realize that it's really not that big of a deal. Like, they're going to be, I don't know if people thought that gays were just going to be like these deviant people that weren't going to pay their bills and do all that. Well, they're just people. We're humans. We just have different attractions. So we have different circumstances that way, but that doesn't mean that we're not human beings and know how to be responsible adults. They're not wild animals or anything like that. Although some of those pride parades, pretty wild. Pride is a wild time, especially in San Francisco. Anyway, so as time went on, you were able to buy a home and do all the things. And I watched my friends do all those things. I watched them be able to go have children and buy a home together and raise a family and do all the things. And did a lot of them not stay together? They did. And that hurt my heart. And that is one of many, many reasons why I did not want to have kids. And because why would I have kids if I was just going to have a broken home? I didn't want to do that. And that is only one small reason why I chose to not have kids. And that will lead into the next part of the conversation, because right now, with the way that the community has gone and the way the world is going, we're really starting to really dive into this whole, we're going to just have a whole generation of child sacrifice is really what it is. See, back then people wanted to have kids and they would have them. They didn't, granted, the Roe versus Wade thing was there. And I know straight people when I was in the military that, they ended up going down that avenue. And I didn't really agree with it then. But to me, it was something that you were able to do. And I was highly, highly, highly uneducated on how abortions work. Highly uneducated about it. And once I became educated about it, it made me want to throw up about what happens and how people see it. And I think right now, when you talk to the younger generation and they say, oh, you see all these videos that are like, I think they're just rage bait, but I do think that there's a reality in the generation that says, oh, I love abortions. I love the fact that you can do this. And for whatever reason, a lot of these videos are filmed at Gay Pride. And I never had questions like that when I was at Pride, ever. I was out there just hanging out with my friends, drinking, listening to music, sitting on the lawn, watching some pretty weird stuff, pretty scathy stuff, and just having a good time, right? And yeah, having a good time. But today, if we were to look at abortion and the way the community has gone, the alphabet community has gone, they're really not that far apart. They're really not that different. And I say that because they both involve child sacrifice. In the community now, all of a sudden, we've gone to this part where transgenderism has become popular. So back in the day, when I was in like high school and stuff like that, and it was cool to sleep with I watched like girl on girl, we'll say girl on girl porn, and that kind of stuff. That was like the cool thing. And then it was like, oh, would you ever do that? And oh yeah, I would. And if you said you didn't, then you were just a doorknob and you were just, weird and not cool. And then you go to college and, you sleep with girls in college, and which I don't know, because I didn't go to college. I went in the Marine Corps, and we didn't do that. But go to college and sleep with girls and all these kinds of things, all the craziness, right? And that's kind of like, it was like almost trendy to be gay. Like it went through a phase where I felt like it was like trendy to be a lesbian. And so you meet these people and they're like, oh, my marriage didn't work out, or this didn't work out, or that. And trust me, there was a lot of women that their marriage didn't work out and they tried to turn to women. And then they realize like, this is not what I want. And then it causes like this huge drama scene. But yeah, they just, people think that that's going to be an option for them. And they're not really gay. They're just being rebellious, and they think that that's going to be cool. And it's easier to be with a woman, and it's not. And now the community, so they're not that far apart, right? And so now the community, we have over here, we have abortion, which is just child sacrifice. And then we have over here, we have transgenderism of children. And we have children being indoctrinated into the transgender world, where they're giving them puberty blockers, and we're, cutting off private parts, and they're taking them through, like if it's a male going to be a female and a female going to be a male, like they're switching them. And so their reproductive systems are going to be all jacked up. And generations, because of this transgenderism and because of these children getting put on puberty blockers so early, they're never going to be able to have children, ever. They are going to regret it wholeheartedly. I didn't have children when I got saved, and I went through all my healing process with the Lord and spent umpteen up time with the Lord and working on myself. I understood that I didn't meet that mark for Him. Granted, He forgives me for that, of course, and I've repented for that I chose a path that I thought at the time, I really thought that it was the right thing to do, was to not have kids. I did not want to bring kids into the gay community world. I wanted to be selfish and self-centered and be career driven. These are just a couple of reasons. And then there's some deeper reasons why I didn't want to have children. And if I would have had kids, if I had a partner that wanted kids and we had kids, then I would have. I really didn't want to, because I was watching brokenness happen in other homes, and I didn't want to put kids through that. And I didn't think that that was fair unless I had a stable home. And there's other reasons too. So I didn't have kids. And these children that are going through these scenarios, and I think parents think that, oh, I'm going to put my child on puberty blockers right now, and if they decide later on when they're an adult, this is the weirdest statement ever, they decide later on when they're an adult that they don't want to be that, they don't want to, if my son decides he doesn't want to be a girl anymore, then he can be a boy again. No. I mean, he's always a boy, but his life will never be what it was supposed to be. You've completely erased everything, every single thing that was intended to be for that boy or that girl. And then you have generations that are not going to have children. And not only that, they're not only going to not be able to have kids because they are starting so early. And granted, there are people that have transitioned and been able to come back and be able to have kids. That 100% they've been able to, but not at this age, not this young age that they're trying to indoctrinate these children into. These young kids, before they even go through puberty, these other individuals have already gone through puberty and have already had all the hormones and all the things. And so when they come off, the chances of them having a kid are lower, but it is possible. It is possible for women to get pregnant after they've taken testosterone and stuff like that. But children is a whole nother aspect. I mean, you are cutting off that whole opportunity for their body to be able to produce the things that it was supposed to produce for them to be able to reproduce later on, which is what they're supposed to be doing. So there's a whole generation of children that are not going to be born. So Moloch, the demon of sacrifice, he's part of what Jonathan Cahn calls a dark trinity. Moloch is the lower god of child sacrifice. And it's biblical. It's in the Bible. Pagans would take their children, put them in on his burning hands. They would sacrifice their children. They would burn them alive, and it was just horrific. And this is basically what that is. And where that got changed is when the gospel came into play. But as you push God out of the world, you're going to bring Moloch back in. So as you've seen society try to push God out of everything, and we've seen that in our last administration so much, then you're going to start seeing how Moloch and Ishtar would be the goddess of prostitution and sexuality, and that's really the goddess of the alphabet community is Ishtar, and Ishtar is like a gender blending and just really enjoys all of that transitioning and the transgenderism and all that kind of stuff. And she's that's really her whole ordeal, and so you have that being brought back in as well, and then you have Baal as well. So you have all three of these, but Moloch is the one that is really the demon, is what I would say, that people are worshiping and they don't even know that they're worshiping, because every single time a parent allows their small child to get put on puberty blockers to transition, and I can tell these kids don't even know transition, because that's what the parent wants, not what the child wants. The child doesn't wake up one day without being groomed and say, I want to be a different sex. I want to be a girl. The little girl doesn't wake up and go, I want to be a boy today. She might wake up and be like, I want to go play with boy stuff, and I want to do the things that the boys do. That doesn't make her a boy. I did all those things. I wanted to go run in the dirt and play with the boys and hit baseballs and fight and do all the things. That didn't make me a boy. That made me somebody who liked those things. A girl that liked those things. Did I play with Barbies and stuff like that too? Yeah, for sure. But I like dirt bikes and all the things. So these little girls and boys are not going to be able to have children later on, which means that those parents, if that is your only child, you are not only are they not going to have children, you're not going to have grandchildren. And if you have a boy, that's going to end your line right there. It's going to just end your personal line of generations right there. So there won't be generation after generation of generation of your bloodline. It will not ever be there. And there'll be a generation of children that will not be able to be born because of the selfish and self-centeredness of parents and putting their children on puberty blockers and not being responsible and saying, hey, let's hold off and find out if our kid's just going through this and maybe tomorrow he or she wants to be a turtle. Let's not take our child to gay pride or alphabet affirming places as a small child to try to help them fit in. How about they just go play with normal kids and be a normal kid and get scraped up and ride their bikes and roller skate if kids roller skate anymore. I used to do that a lot and do all the things and play outside or play video games, whatever it is they want to do. Let them be creative in their life and let their mentality grow as children instead of shoving all this other stuff that the alphabet community has been so politicized. It's ridiculous. And then over here, you have another generation that is older, that, youth, young adults, that is a little bit older and even older than that believe that abortion is real and good, and we should do that. So here's the other side of child sacrifice. You have this generation who is going out and having abortions, and multiple abortions, because Planned Parenthood is all about sacrificing children. And I don't know how these people sleep at night. I don't know how they sleep at night thinking there's only one way that they could sleep at night, and is that these people that work in these places have been infiltrated with some serious demons, and they sacrifice Moloch, or they worship Moloch and sacrifice children so that they can worship him more and feel like they're doing something great when they're not. And whether these people believe what they're doing is right or not, this is not about, first of all, abortion is not reproductive health. It's not health care at all. Health care is helping somebody who's sick, or, like when you go to your primary care and just make sure that you're all good to go. This is just child sacrifice is really all it is. And there's really no way that you can get around that. You can deny it all day long. I can deny that my dog is I can say my dog is blonde and he's got black hair all day long. It doesn't change the fact that he has black hair. It doesn't change the fact that he is a boy. I can say, oh, that's a girl. It doesn't change the fact that he's got boy parts. So it doesn't matter if you think that it's not child sacrifice. At the end of the day, it actually is. And it doesn't matter what you think. And it's just your opinion. Doesn't make your opinion. It's not reality. And so we have this whole generation that will continuously go and get abortion after abortion after abortion after abortion and be allowed to do so because Planned Parenthood is funded and was really made to potentially eliminate a community of people. And then it just opened itself up to everything else. So now you got these two. You got an older, younger adult generation. And I saw a video the other day. And then you had these young kids. And I saw a video the other day where this lady talked about how she was, a friend of mine handed it over to me, and that she had an abortion when she was younger because she was in a relationship with a man who was drug addicted. And I don't know if she was addicted or not. I didn't get that. I didn't pay attention to that part. But she would not have been able to raise a child herself, and that she did the decision that she thought that was the best decision for her at that time and for that child. That she felt that if she would have raised that child, that child would have had a horrible life. And it really made me feel sorry for her that she thought so low of herself at that time, that she didn't realize that having a child probably would have been a blessing to her life and actually forced her to get herself together. But there are a lot of women out there that are pretty resilient and will be able to raise children on their own. Is it hard? Yeah, it is hard. But if it's so hard, don't have sex. Don't. That's the answer. The answer is don't have sex. Because don't do things that make babies if you don't want to have babies. I mean, that's pretty simple. And I know that that's hard for people, and it's a weird concept because my whole entire life, I was never taught to wait till marriage. I was never taught that. I was taught you do it when you're older, but never. And I never waited till I was older. But so this lady, she ended up having this abortion and really just never provided herself the opportunity to be able to. She has kids now, and now she has a beautiful life, and she got herself together and did all the things, and then she was ready to have children. But she thought that sacrificing a child at that time because she didn't think that she was going to be able to raise it. I totally related to that because I was like, I'm not going to have children because of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. But I never had one of those. I never did that. And had I gotten pregnant, I would have kept it. I would have just done the right thing and I believe that would have been a gift from God. And I believe that would have been a gift to her from God. But she wasn't a believer. She didn't have God in her life like that. And that's why she thought that was the right decision to make. And I think a lot of people feel that way. I also believe that a lot of people do these things and then they regret them later because you will be left wondering the rest of your life, even if you don't admit it now, because a lot of people don't admit it. But when they're alone and they're in the dark or they're hanging out and their mind starts going and that pops into their head, there's a wonder there of what that child would be like today. Would that child have been successful in school? Would that child have been, because you can't say that they wouldn't have been. You have no idea. I mean, look at how many professional ball players are out there that are amazing at sports and they're successful, or business people that are successful. They came from super broken homes, and moms that are poor and single and working their tails off. And it's possible. It's possible. So we have two generations here that are just eliminating children. They're just eliminating children. So we have a whole generation that is going to not be around because we have adults that are sacrificing children, and then those children will never have babies. And then we have over here people that are just doing child sacrifice at their own will because it's inconvenient for them to have children. And one of the arguments about abortion is, well, we're just going to, because when I remember when it wasn't legal. I remember hearing stories about people using coat hangers and doing all the things. And I remember those things. And that's the argument, that it's just going to go back to that. And if that's what people decide, here's the thing, it's not going to go back to that. And it won't go back to that because there's so many places out there right now. There's so many organizations out there right now that weren't out there before that are here to help women. They will help women. They will take you in and help you and walk with you through the process. And that's all they want to do. That's all they want to do, is they just want to help people. They just want to help these women and help these children. If adoption is the whole ordeal, or fostering, or whatever it is that they want to do, then they go do that. Or if you decide, because once you hold that baby, I hear that it changes everything about you, then you keep the baby and they make it work. And with all the programs that we have out here, not everywhere else, they make it pretty good. I mean, childcare is pretty expensive, and that's kind of a totally different topic, but there's a lot of factors that go into it. But at no time is child sacrifice and the worship of Moloch something that we should be considering. And if you're transitioning your kid, and if you're a Christian and you're transitioning your kid, you're not a Christian. I'm going to tell you that right now. You are not a Christian, because you're not a Bible believing Christian. You're a what's convenient to me, I'm going to use the name Christianity, is what you are. Because if you are using puberty blockers on your children, and you are transitioning your children at a very young age, you have some problems. This is about you. It's not about your kid. It's about you wanting to be able to have something like that. And whatever validation that is for you, whatever you lost in your childhood, and whatever trauma that you're dealing with, you're putting on your child. because I can tell you there's no way in heck my parents would have let that happen. I was just a tomboy through and through. I had 2 older brothers, and I just liked all kinds. I liked sports. I liked all kinds of stuff. But yeah, so we have a whole society that's worshiping Molech, and they don't even know that they're doing it. And if you were to tell them that they're worshiping Molech and that they're providing child sacrifice, they would go, "No, I'm not." And they don't even know what you're talking about. They have no idea. And the fact that they don't know what you're talking about and they're still offended by what you're saying when you say stuff like that is wild to me, because you don't even know what I'm saying. You don't even probably know who Molech is. You might have heard the name here and there, but it doesn't sound good when it comes out of somebody's mouth. But that's exactly what's happening. And you're going to have this whole generation of these young kids that are going to grow up, and they're going to change their minds, and they're going to be angry that they didn't have the opportunity to just have a childhood, that they ended up getting talked into taking puberty blockers and cutting off private parts and transitioning and drugged to these pride parades and groomed that these pride parades are correct, with grown men riding around on bikes with their wankers hanging out and booties hanging out, flashing them in front of children, which should be completely illegal, by the way. Completely illegal. As far as I know, that's illegal. Like, you should never be showing your adult junk to some kid. And watching half naked people walking down the street. Because when you go to a pride event, there's nothing that is like normal. I mean, there's people there with normal clothes, but a majority of it is like, how am I going to dress today? What's the most wild thing that I could wear? And that's what people wear. And a lot of it is sexual, because the whole thing is about sexuality. The whole thing. So you got drag queens doing drag shows in front of children and doing weird bouncing up and down and doing weird sexual poses and movements and stuff like that. And that's freaking weird and also should be illegal. And those people should be in jail or arrested or on some sort of list. And then these kids are like, you got kids giving dollars to drag queens. Are you kidding me? So now you're not only just child sacrifice, now you're just grooming. Now you're not child sacrifice to your own child and to the potential kids that they could have had, but it's sacrifice of your own child. You're sacrificing your child for an agenda, for a community that is not anything what it used to be. Today, that community is nothing but a political agenda. And it has completely ruined the whole community, completely ruined it. And it's ruined it to the point where people in society can't even stand each other anymore. If you're not, I mean, the first question that's asked to you, and I know this because it happened to me, is, who'd you vote for? I'm like, what does it matter who I voted for? I'm having a conversation with you. Like, as part of your community, I know where you're coming from, but this isn't the community that I was part of for over 30 years. This is not this thing that we're going to bring children into, and we're going to indoctrinate them, and we're going to have them wear all this rainbow stuff and tell. It's one thing for you to raise your children to say, hey, if your friend's gay, they're just your friend. There's nothing different about them. They just are attracted to the same sex. They're still a person, and they're still probably a good person if they're a kid. I mean, I would think that they're a good person. But it's the same thing that my parents did. They didn't teach us to see, like, they just told us to see people. That's it. Just people. And that was it. And know about good and bad people. Didn't matter. The rest of it didn't matter. Like skin color and all that. That didn't matter. Where you came from. None of that mattered. And that's how I grew up. For sure. And that's how these kids should grow up. But they don't have to be a part of the community. We don't have to have pride flags in schools. We don't have to have sex ed for kids. I feel like we had sex ed for us so that you would know, like, kind of what was going on with your body as far as like monthly cycles and I don't know, for dudes, whatever dudes go through when they're going through puberty, and like how to not get pregnant, but we still didn't understand that whole part either because we were like, I don't know, can you get pregnant from just standing next to somebody? Like it was just like this whole weird thing. And now we want to teach them how to do all these things, like have relationships as children with each other. That's freaking weird. This is where the community has gone to. We've gone entirely too far. And at the sacrifice of our children, and it is generations to come, it is going to just eliminate a whole generation. I can just see it. I can see it. It's just going to eliminate a whole generation. And that is exactly what Moloch wants. That's exactly what the devil wants. Because the devil wants the things that are most precious to God, and things that are most precious to God are his children. And that he's got a lot of these people, especially the alphabet community, he's got them wrapped around his little finger right now. This generation of the community is just a hot mess. And I'm saying this generation, like I'm not saying like older parts of the generation or what have you, but this newer generation that's coming in, these kids that are coming in, that the furry thing, don't even get me started on the furry thing. That was like one of those fetish shows that I used to watch, like when people like to eat toilet paper or they fall in love with their car, or grown men that want to dress up like kids. That's what that was. That was part of that show. It was like some fetish they had. And now it's like kids are dressing like that in school, and it's just not okay. It's not okay. And I don't know. Yeah, it's just not okay. It's not okay. That's all I can say. It's not okay. But my point is with this whole thing is that between abortion and the indoctrination of our children, our young children have not gone through puberty yet, and wanting to force this whole thing about them going on puberty blockers instead of waiting until they're older to be able to make the decision themselves. Like once they get older and pass through puberty and do all that thing, and they want to transition, then let them transition. What's the worst that's going to happen? Oh, they're afraid that they're not going to transition right? Well, what the heck? That's stupid. Of course they're going to transition. I have friends that have transitioned later in life and they look just like dudes. I mean, it's not, that's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. Your kids are not an experiment. These children are not an experiment, and the children in the womb are not for you to sacrifice out of your own convenience because you're irresponsible. Because that's what happens. And don't come back to me with the whole grape thing. Don't come back to me. Like you're going to talk to me now. I hate when people say that in videos. I just said it. But I know that people say, that's an argument. People are like, oh, if grape happens, then, what do you say then? Well, as a Christian, we say, yeah, you continue on with it. Is it a hard situation? Heck yeah. I can imagine that would be hard. I can't. But if you have a really good support system and you have people that are going to be there for you, then it's going to be okay. God's going to take care of it. God's going to take care of you. And that's why I'm so big on people turning their lives to God, because it's not for me. I'm not here to change anybody. I'm a vessel to be a disciple for the Lord's word and the testimony that I have that he's done in my life. I had 0 people in my life. People say, oh, you got indoctrinated into the Christian world and, you're just drank the Kool-Aid. And I don't think it's Kool-Aid that we drink. It's the blood of Jesus, but I'm pretty sure it's grape juice. But it's not something that somebody talked to me about. Nobody talked to me about it. The only person that talked to me was God. I was not surrounded by people in my life that would talk. When I would go to church, I didn't talk to anybody there. I would say hi, bye, and that was it. But I didn't have friends there. I didn't hang out at church. I didn't do anything. I just wanted to go hear a sermon and then go and take what I wanted, leave the rest and go. It was years and years and years of seeking, because I knew that if I could find God, I would at least be a halfway decent person, because I was lost, and I loved God. I had an unconditional love for the Lord that I didn't even understand. And I don't understand how I knew that, because I didn't understand what love was. I never had an example of like true unconditional love in my life. I mean, my parents were there, but I didn't understand that. I had infatuation for people. I had lust for people, which I confused with love. But I didn't know what love was. And when I was seeking God without even, it wasn't like I was trying to get out of the community, because I wasn't. It was really a really trippy time for me. And I wasn't indoctrinated into anything. I didn't, like I said, I didn't have anybody speaking the word into me at all. I just drove around singing worship music, trying to fill my mind with good stuff. And many, many, many years later, I was saved. When I walked into the room of Alcoholics Anonymous as just Jen, and nobody knew what my past lifestyle was. Nobody knew I was done and been divorced from my ex at that time, who was trans. She had done and gone and moved on and been in another relationship and did whatever. And I was able to just get clean and sober, clear-headed, do my step work, and say, you know what, God, I'm all yours. If this is how it's going to be, then this is how it's going to be. And I'm just going to put 120%. I will never walk away from you again. I did it once before when I was in the lifestyle where he called to me to follow him, and I walked away. He called me. There's nobody else. I barely knew any words out of the Bible. I knew John 3:16. I didn't know any passages. I didn't understand any of the Bible. I didn't know who Paul was. I knew there were 12 disciples. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know their names. I didn't know anything at all. And I would just hear what I heard at sermons and apply it to my life. And if they were sermons about men and women, I would apply it to women and women, right? The only problem is you can't have a man and a woman relationship with two women or two men. It just doesn't work. You're going to have two women in the household or two men in the household. So it can't be biblically sound or biblically breathed. So when I talk about my testimony, it is 100% pure God that came into my life and spoke to me. When I talk about what it's like and what it was like for me being part of the Alphabet community, I'm 100% honest. I had a beautiful time many, many times. Even in some of the crazy breakups that I had great relationships. And I had a really fun time. And I can look back on those days and say, yeah, I had fun. I remember people that I hurt or situations. And I remember when God was calling me to be away from women, and I was actually subconsciously listening. And I didn't know what to do, but I knew I wasn't going to leave my lifestyle, because that's all that I knew. So when I do say these things, it's because God spoke to me. It is not because somebody came into my life. There was no pastors. I had no Christian friends preaching the gospel to me. I had nobody discipling me. I had nobody in front of me. It was just me and God and the Holy Spirit. And I think about many, many times where God spoke to me and I heard him and was not obedient. And this last time when I went down this dark place, it was either I would die as an alcoholic, and I just asked him to make my life worth something, or I was going to get clean and sober, and to please allow me to get clean and sober and honor you, not myself, because I did not want to go back to that lifestyle. And that was the one reason why I didn't say anything to anybody about who I was previous going into recovery. until I talked to my sponsor. And I went down that whole road, just believing in God. I didn't tell anybody at church. When I started going to Bible college, I didn't tell anybody in Bible college. It took a while, but nobody spoke to me about where I should be and what the word says about the alphabet community or being in a gay relationship. And it was just me and God. So when I speak to you today, it's pure of heart from Him. It's not me. It's Him. He's asked me to do this. He's asked me to, I might fumble on the words. I might say things maybe not necessarily the right way, but this is 100% Him and what He's asked me to do. This is 100% a relationship that I had with God in the most awkward way I can think of, because I didn't even realize that I had that relationship with Him. It's really hard to explain. But not everybody has people come into their lives, preaches the gospel to them and tells them, and then they're convinced and then they go. So when I talk to people about my testimony, I'm just here to share my testimony. It's not my job to change people. It's not our jobs as Christians to change people. It's our job to pray for people. It's our job to be kind to people. And it's our job to speak truth and love to people. And when you speak truth and love to people, people get offended and think you're judging, and they do other things, because we live in a very broken world that serves Baal, Moloch, and Ishtar. The devil's threesome. No pun intended. But that is why we have this broken world, because of those false gods that people are, because they push God out, they push the Lord out, and they bring that back in. But when there's a lot of people out there that are like me, that God's been speaking to. And those are the people that I'm reaching out to. I'm actually anybody in the community. I think it's important that people hear this. I think people are scared to leave the community. I think that the community is not kind to people that leave the community. I think that there's a lot of things that are misunderstood today. I think the point of what the community fought for has been lost. I think that it's been provided the opportunity to get really stinking weird and very dangerous. And it is now at the sacrifice of our children. God's precious children are being sacrificed by straight couples, by gay couples, and by young adults and youth and adults. And it's time for that to stop. Because if it doesn't, if we don't stop and we don't start trying to look at what we really need to do in this world and the structure that we need to have in this world, we're not going to have this world anymore. And a lot of people who say they don't care where they're going, you're going to care eventually. But I don't think that genuinely people want to hurt their children, but stop sacrificing your children. And if you're a Christian and you're going through this with your child, get your child in to talk to somebody that knows what they're talking about. It doesn't have to be a therapist. It could be somebody like me. It could be somebody that's good with kids. I'm not saying have them come talk to me. I'm just saying it could be me. It could be somebody that likes to talk to kids. It doesn't have to be a therapist. Because I don't even think a therapist, there's no way a therapist could have better information than somebody who's lived the lifestyle and watched the change of it happen for this many years. I know there's people that have been part of the community for a long time that have passed now and have watched some of the victories happen for that community, and they would roll over in their grave at this point in time. So as I wrap it up here, because I'm at an hour, as I wrap it up here, I just want to say, take the time to just be kinder to people. Understand that you can have conversations and not agree with each other. And we really need to focus on protecting our children from all of it. Have a good night.